So we always begin by just consciously bringing our attention into the body, what's happening in our body, and also what's happening in our mind. A moment to reflect on how wonderful it is that we can get together and do some practice together, do some study of the Dharma, do some meditation, take care of our minds, restore our peace and tranquility. Our motive is always to benefit not just ourselves, but other beings, and also ultimately to benefit all sentient beings, all living beings, by becoming an enlightened being ourselves. So we just begin by scanning the body, making sure the body's straight, comfortable, evenly balanced on the floor or the chair. Checking for any tightness in the upper body, shoulders relaxed, the face muscles, the eye muscles soft. Feeling the weight of the body, gentle pull of gravity into the earth, surrendering to the earth, letting go. Then just giving more attention to the breathing, how the breath enters and leaves the body. Nothing to change, nothing to judge, just watch the breath. Observing what's already happening. Just one breath at a time, following each breath all the way into the body, all the way out of the body. And checking from time to time where our attention is, just checking that we're still on the breath, or have we been distracted? The thought. There always will be thoughts. And notice that the mind going with the thoughts, we gently let go of that distraction, patiently come back to the breath. Okay, thanks.
That was very nice.
Okay, so we're in our class for discovering Buddhism, we're actually doing bodhicitta, the topic of bodhicitta, compassion, great compassion. So I thought I'd just take one of the meditations on that, which is giving and taking. It's called Tonglen, giving and taking meditation. So just a bit of background. So the topic of bodhicitta is just about developing compassion, loving kindness. But this is a very high form of compassion, bodhicitta. It's basically wishing. There's two stages. One is wishing bodhicitta, where we want other beings to be happy and free from suffering. And we know we use our reasoning, think, how can we achieve that? We want ourselves and others to achieve the ultimate happiness, and enlightenment being the ultimate happiness when we become completely free of all our karma and delusions, a Buddha mind. And to get there, we need the mind of compassion. It's the only way. It's said to be the doorway to enlightenment. So we wish all sentient. We also wish ourselves to be free of suffering, but we also wish others to be free from suffering and have happiness. And to get there, we've got to actually to be of most use to other sentient beings. We need to become an enlightened being. That's the best way. Of course, it takes time, and there are stages to it. We just don't suddenly become Buddha or Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva being the person who's attained this great compassionate mind. So we have, first of all, the stage where we wish we have some understanding of what it means to have this great compassionate mind. We wish we had a wishing bodhicitta. And then the other more advanced stage is entering bodhicitta, it's called. Other different words for it, where we actually how mind actually becomes attuned, and that sense of compassion is there ingrained in our mind, and we feel it spontaneously without having to actually think about it. So that's entering bodhicitta, and then a full bodhisattva has that mind all the time, not just when they're meditating, but constantly thinking of others automatically. So this is probably Lama Zopa says this, and also Dalai Lama, all the great teachers say this is the key to making progress in the Dharma, making progress in our meditation, key for our own success in worldly life, spiritual life, and the key to being of use and help to others as well. So, so there's in the Discovering Buddhism course, a little bit of discussion. I think Lama Zopa talks about this, about how some parts of the Western type of culture sees the practice of loving kindness, compassion as being a little bit unrealistic. They have some of the biologists think we have a selfish gene that is always looking at how we're going to survive ourselves. We're instinctively wired to look after ourselves rather than others. So this kind of thought has been disproved over the years, and there's the Dalai Lama has actually pointed out how the importance of love for babies from the moment of birth, having this connection with the mother, and if humans babies, they can map human babies' progress when they have this natural nurturing from the mother, and then they can also survey and research babies that haven't had that and the different difficulties they have later in life. So it's definitely an essential part of forming the foundation for our later life, having this sense of love and compassion. And then animals, we can look at animals, how animals have this natural tendency to look after their young. And also the Dalai Lama often talks about the importance nowadays of cooperation in the world. He says maybe a century or two ago, all the nations were looking after their own territory and fighting off the invaders. There wasn't this stage we're at where we've got all the economy of the world interconnected, and so that when one thing goes wrong in some part of the world, we're all affected. See what's happening with Ukraine and so on, how we're all the pandemic and so on. So this globalization phenomenon means that we have to think of our effects on others, more cooperation, less putting up the barricades of our national walls and thinking that we're the only country that matters. Then the interesting quote I found from Darwin, you know, the great scientist who formed the theory of evolution, he said that our social instincts are to serve, to help, and to be sympathize with others. So interesting. Some people point to Darwinism saying that, you know, that shows how the most selfish being is the most successful, but Darwin didn't agree at all with that. So so many teachings on the importance of compassion, bodhicitta, and it's the only way to enlighten, we're told. So if we want to make progress, we have to become more compassionate and develop this sense of concern for others. We can become a child of the Buddha. Child of the Buddha is said to be where we actually, our way of thinking and acting is seen by the Buddhas as being exactly in conformity with their teachings. And so we get all the help from all the Buddhas, even though we can't see them. We have this sort of sense of success because all these great beings are on our side. So all our practices become, if we have an attitude of concern for others in all our actions, everyday actions, work, family, and so on, even recreation and so on, we're going to make progress. So we can make even all our daily tasks into Dharma practice. Don't have to just spend time on the cushion. So we're having that mind of compassion. Often Lama Zopa says things like walk with compassion, eat with compassion, work with compassion, die with compassion. So it's very simple sort of message to just make our whole life this just change the attitude, really. So that's what it is. And so there's two methods that they use traditionally in Tibetan Buddhism. One's called the 7-point cause and effect, which is where we think very much about how kind our close members of the family, particularly our mothers, and how incredibly close the mother-child relationship is. And then we can think of our own experience with our own mother, and then we can think that from our teachings, we're told that we didn't just have this mother, but we've had infinite lives in the past where we've had mothers in human form, we've had mothers in animal form. And so this vast connection with kindness of the mothers in the past. So our existence today depends on our mother feeding us from birth, looking after us, cleaning up after us, making sure we're safe at all times, and then making sure we have a good life, good education, etc. So that so this I won't go into too much detail because I'm not going to do this particular practice. This is the one where we use reasoning, a lot of reasoning, very rational. If all mothers have been kind to us and we've had this relationship with our mother, we must have had the relationship with infinite number of beings as a mother. The mother's been our we've been a child to all infinite being. And so we recognize what they've done to us, these mother sentient beings, we call them, and we want to do something for them. And what can we do for them? We want them to be happy. We want them to be free of suffering, just like us. And so we develop this wish that they don't suffer, that they do have happiness. And we go through a very logistical time. And then the ultimate form of wish is for that bodhicitta, that they could we take on their suffering on their behalf? We get to the same end point as just the Tonglen meditation of wanting to help other beings in the ultimate way. So the second one, Tonglen, which is the one we're going to do, it's more instinctive. The Dalai Lama said it's kind of more less rational and more at the heart level, and exchanging self for others. He says it doesn't mean that we actually think of ourselves as having the body of the other person or the eyes of the other person. What it means is we're exchanging our thoughts of well-being from us looking after ourselves to looking after others. Okay, so it's just a change of attitude. The main focus is on others rather than on ourselves. So that doesn't mean that we think of ourselves as nothing, that we don't belittle ourselves, because we need to have self-confidence that we can actually help others. Okay, so he says all the teachers talk about self-confidence in the practice is really important. To help generate that, we remind ourselves that we have Buddha nature, and we can eliminate the negative emotions and so on are just transient, they're not permanent. So we can actually eliminate those. The positive emotions, loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, have firm foundations, and they can actually be increased. So we have this sense of we can do the practice, we can help others, and so have this sense of the more we feel confidence in ourselves, the more we can help others. So, so in the particular practice, let's check the notes here. Okay, so particular practice, we actually use a problem that we've had, either we're having now or had recently, where we felt a sense of suffering. Could be an illness, could be a relational problem, could be financial problems, something in our life that's affected our well-being and peace of mind. And then from there, we think, well, this particular problem, we don't go into too much details of the whys and wherefores of the problem, but we can think about how it's affected our lives. And this is the first noble truth: suffering. We're not enlightened being, and it will happen to us. So then we think, well, okay, I've got this problem, but just think of the infinite numbers of beings on the planet and beyond who have the same problem. Okay, so the sharing, they've got the problem, I've got it, where they could have a worse version of the problem. They could have more of the illness, particularly during the pandemic. You can think of those who've got more than just a cold, or they've got some sort of very serious version of the COVID virus, and they might have died. So we think these beings like us are experiencing suffering. They don't want to experience suffering just like that. They only want happiness. And then we just look at we can widen the kind of problems they're suffering, they're feeling from not just the problem that we've got, but they could have something worse. They could have mental persecution, depression, mental problems, could be living in a war-torn zone, droughts, floods, natural disasters, abuses of human rights, and so on. So we accept that these sufferings are happening. So then we then come back to this problem and think, wouldn't we introduce this novel thought, this thought that could be quite shocking for our state of mind. Since I have to experience this problem, I am one, and they're infinite in numbers. They have infinite numbers. Wouldn't it be wonderful if just me, one person, could experience my problem on behalf of the other? By me having this problem, wouldn't it be wonderful if they could not have that problem? So we just put that into the mind and see what happens. And some Lama Yeshe says, just see how you react, and sometimes you'll freak out, because the mind's not used to having that thought of taking on the sufferings of others. And he says, push through that and just think, it would be amazing to think of that. And I was just thinking when I was teaching the DB, Discovering Bosom Force, in the Christian story about Jesus dying on the cross, they say he died for the sins of others. So as a Buddhist, we can see that as the mind of great compassion. He's going through incredible suffering, and he's saying, may I go through this on behalf of others. May my suffering on the cross here mean that other people, all the other human beings, don't have to suffer. So that's taught in the Christian teachings that he takes on physically, he actually takes on being suffering. So the Buddhists will say that's the great mind of great compassion that we all have to develop, because we have to do the work ourselves. We can't actually just leave it to one person, because Buddha can't actually he would have enlightened us long ago if he'd been able to do it on his own. So that's the Buddhist aspect of that. So then we think of the numbers, which one's more important, the one or the infinite. Another one that can help us generate this wish is thinking how amazingly kind all these other beings have been and are. So we can think about current life, just about everything. All our food is grown basically by others. Think of the bowl of rice or what we've got on the table before we eat. Those who've grown it, often with great suffering. Those who've harvested it, the beings who have died, or the insects, or animals if we're eating meat and so on. And all the work done to produce this food for us. And then we can go to the clothing, the people who grow the cotton, those who actually, we don't usually make our own clothing. Often the workers in the clothing industry suffer unbelievable conditions in Bangladesh and these sweatshops. And think about the incredible kindness of those beings who go through so much suffering. We can do it with all the other luxury, just everyday things in life, the electricity, the transport, people who drive the buses, the people who built the houses we're in. So all these, every second from the moment we wake up, we're receiving the benefits of other people's work, kindness and labour, and how wonderful it is. So, so this is helping to this sense of equalisation. They, like me, only want happiness, don't want suffering. Like me, they're unenlightened and they are suffering without wanting to. And they wouldn't be wondering if they didn't have this suffering that they experience. So then we use the breath. This is the giving and taking. You visualize that with the in-breath. We visualize beings all around us in human form. They're suffering beings with their problem. And with each in-breath, we visualize that we are lifting all their suffering and problems out of their mind and body in the form of black smoke, breathing that out. So there's two options. The main practice is we imagine the black smoke coming into the center of the heart, which we visualize as being our self-concern, putting self before others, self-cherishing, Lama Zopa calls it. And we imagine all that black smoke destroying our self-cherishing, just exploding it. So it's said some people find that too much, and they sometimes feel uncomfortable. The easier practice is to visualize the smoke going out beyond space with each in-breath, with breathing in, and it all goes beyond space where it can do no harm, all like smoke. So we stay with this thought of breathing in, taking in the problem, and relieving these beings of their problem. Just hold that visualization for a while. And then second practice is focusing on the out breath. And with the out breath, we're breathing out all our positive qualities, all our good karma, merit, all our passion, wisdom that we've generated in this and previous lives. And we visualize that white light going out with the breath into the hearts of all the suffering beings, relieving them of their suffering. So that's the giving thing. So that's basically it. Then we can actually alternate, if it's comfortable, with each in and out breath. That's a sort of a faster form of visualization. And then it's said good to imagine at the end of the practice that actually there's been success. We've actually helped these beings and see them as if we have actually relieved their suffering. So we can confirm that this is just in our mind, and the being still suffering. But Lama Zopa says just by doing the practice, we should realize that each time our mind benefits, each time we do this practice, it helps bring us to enlightenment and other sentient beings to enlightenment. They're the words he uses. So it's a very, very powerful practice. And by familiarizing ourselves, doing it practice more often, the mind starts to do it there's less contrivance, it's much easier, it becomes a habit. And so we become closer to the bodhisattvas who have made it a habit. And that's the way they think. So it's pretty powerful. Any questions before we launch in? Probably you've had experience with the practice, all the teachings on it before. Bodhicitta.
I have. But with that, I had someone tell me that to just imagine, and I'm wondering where actual actions come in. Where
Okay, yeah. So yes, this is often mentioned because again we can compare Christian focus on importance of helping, helping hands-on in hospitals, schools, relieving the poor, giving to charity and so on. Very, very strong focus on the actual physical side of that. And in traditional Tibet, of course, most of all the practice was done in monasteries and the monks were doing the practices, excuse me, not out of the community. And so the people, there was kind of a different social system here. So in the West, we've got the practices being done by people who are in the community, us Westerners, and still having jobs, families, and so on. So His Holiness has often said that in the West, traditional Tibetan Buddhism can learn from the West focus on activity, and we should actually do more work, setting up hospices, doing more physical hands-on work for others, not just Buddhists, but non-Buddhists. And he says that's a great thing that he's learned from, being in the West, seeing how good that is, but not to underestimate the importance of the mind, because the sense of wanting to help others, compassion and so on, starts with the way we think. Okay, so we want to make sure that the actions we do are not sort of motivated by wanting a good reputation, people seeing us, making gifts to, and not building up our ego, but actually having the right motive. So that both are important, starting from the heart. So that's why starting from the way we think. So, but definitely don't have to wait to become a bodhicitta before we start in our everyday life, looking after others, doing voluntary work, as much as possible, turning our everyday life into something that's going to benefit others. So definitely It's a very good point. Yeah. Terrific book. I just came out, I think it was last year, by Lama Zopa called Bodhicitta. So it's just like, you got it? That's like
I'm in the middle of reading it.
it's a terrific book. It's compiled by Gordon McDougall, who's a very well-respected teacher and practitioner, one of Lama Zopa's students. And it's like all the teachings on compassion, bodhicitta that Lama Zopa has ever given over the years in a very readable, well-edited form. Fantastic book. I'm only about halfway through it. So wonderful. Yeah, it's a plug. Okay, so let's maybe just try it. Try this practice. Comfortable. Okay, we just always begin by getting ourselves, our body in a comfortable position, spending a few moments just observing the breath, calming the mind. So we begin our practice on compassion meditation, Tonglen, using our own problems to develop compassion for others by bringing to mind a problem that we maybe suffer of experiencing in our current life, maybe have experienced in the past that we remember affected our sense of well-being, disturbed our mind, and caused us to suffer. Could have been grief when we lost a loved one, illness that we suffered, physical illness, financial problems, work problems, relationship problems. Could be a problem that's not physical but mental, sense of anxiety, particularly with all the pandemic restrictions on our lives. Depression, worry, where our habits and routines have been upset and we felt we've suffered mentally. We just, without going into the details, just the feeling of discomfort, unease, our mind was disturbed by suffering, another problem. This is the first noble truth. It's the truth that we, as unenlightened beings, do suffer in so many different ways. It's acknowledging the problem that we experience. And then the next step is we think about others who at the same time as us having the problem have exactly the same problem. Those in the world who have the same problem, the same illness, same work problem, same relationship problem. Infinite in number. There are countless others who have this problem right now, like us. Perhaps even a worse version. Perhaps even greater suffering than us. acknowledging that sense of sharing that problem, common humanity. We, unenlightened sentient beings, do suffer, are suffering. Not only the particular problem I've got, but they also are experiencing other problems that I may not be suffering. Could be suffering in a war zone, suffering repression, minority groups in China, Tibet, those being tortured, those experiencing natural disasters, famine, flood, fire, people with climate change, those in war-torn zones, refugees, homelessness. Those who have physical comforts but mental suffering, which can be worse than physical suffering. Depression, loneliness, anxiety. Acknowledge this pervasive phenomena of suffering of all living beings, not just humans, animals, all beings in all the realms, upper and lower realms. Accepting the truth of suffering. Suffering's experienced not just by the strangers, but by people who are close to us in our life, also people who are difficult ones, maybe we regard as enemies. They're all suffering and don't want suffering. They only want happiness like us, and they don't want suffering like us. And yet, they experience suffering. Feel that closeness, equanimity of all living beings. So the next step is thinking, coming back to the problem that we might experience or have experienced, and thinking, if only of those who have this problem, like me, did not have to experience the problem, if they could be free of the problem. I am one, they are countless in number, which is the more important. Obviously, the infinite number of beings is more important than the one person. So then we introduce the thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if by me experiencing this problem as one person, I could experience them on behalf of these other beings with the problem. Just introduce that thought into our mind. Imagine by accepting their suffering on myself, I can relieve others from this problem. So just stay with that thought and see what happens in our mind, whether we feel comfortable or uncomfortable, whether we could take on the suffering of these other beings. If there's any resistance, I think we can accustom ourselves to this thought. This is the thought of great compassion, enlightened mind of bodhicitta, take us to enlightenment. All Buddhas have practiced this thought. All great holy beings have this thought. So with this thought in our minds, we now visualize with our breath, using the in and out breath. First of all, focusing on the in breath, visualizing all sentient beings around us in human form with their suffering. With each in breath, we imagine taking in the form of black smoke, the suffering of these beings with each in breath, lifting the suffering out of their minds and bodies. Black smoke comes into the heart, our heart, destroying any resistance to giving or taking on the suffering of others, destroying our self-concern, self-cherishing, all the selfishness that will prevent us from making progress in our practice. The alternative visualization is to visualize the smoke going up beyond space, where it can do no harm with each in-breath. So just focusing a few moments on that visualization with the in-breath. Taking in the suffering of beings, the black smoke, relieving them from their suffering, destroying our self-cherishing mind, staying with that for a few moments. Thinking I am relieving others from their problems by doing this practice. A sense of joy that we can do this practice. By doing this, we destroy our obstacles to the good heart, a sense of great compassion. Now we change from focusing on the in-breath to the out-breath. Visualize that we, with each out-breath, we're giving all our happiness, all our good karma, our merit, all our loving kindness and compassion to these beings in the form of white light. Breathing out all our good qualities, good health, our virtues, white light, the hearts of all those beings around us. Focusing on the out-breath, the white light goes straight into the hearts of all beings, purifying, healing them, giving them joy and peace and good health. Staying with that visualization, the out-breath for a few moments. Our white light of compassion and loving kindness goes out to all beings, not just the friends, but the strangers and also the difficult ones, the enemies. No distinction, they all need happiness like us. We don't want suffering. So as we're doing this, we can, if it helps, think of the words, may you, all living beings like myself, be happy, may be healthy, may live in peace. May all you living beings like myself be happy, healthy, and live in peace. So then finally we have a sense that we have succeeded in our practice. We've relieved these beings of their suffering. See that they have a sense of peace and joy. How wonderful it is that we can help sentient beings in this way, and that we can develop our mind in this way, feeling a sense of satisfaction and gratitude that we can do this practice. By doing this practice, as a byproduct, we can feel a sense of joy and bliss pervading our whole body and mind. So then we can just dedicate any positive merit from this practice. Each time we do it, may it help us to become closer, developing bodhicitta, wisdom, and enlightenment. It may bring us closer to enlightenment, may it bring other beings closer to enlightenment. Okay. So that's practice in a nutshell. Any problems or maybe thoughts? No? Cool. It's hard to find fault with a practice like that. Sort of realizing that it's the way that all our teachers have become what they are. All the Buddhists of the past, present, and future will be doing or have done that practice. So it's very essential for our progress. Okay, so just to finish, I'll just read this wonderful dedication that Lama Zopa gave our centre, probably all centres, for the pandemic, to make special wishes and dedications to people infected by sickness. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sickness. May all the sickness, without exception, of all transmigrating beings never occur again. By my merits and merits of all Buddhas and other sentient beings, may all wars or sickness or famine, torture, poverty, economic problems in the world, all dangers of earth, water, fire, wind be pacified immediately. May peace and happiness prevail in everyone's hearts and everyone's lives. May the Buddha Dharma last a long time. May sentient beings in the world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible. It's dedicated to that. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Shayla, for being there.
Thank you, Ellen. That was wonderful.
Good. Great to see you. Have a great day. Enjoy the dog walk.
Thank you. I sure will. And I will see you for sure next week.
Next week. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Stay well.
You too. Be safe.
Thanks.